So picture this. On just one single day, on India's massive railway network, a goods train derails, bringing a whole region to a standstill. At the same time, hundreds of miles away, two different people are killed in two separate incidents. It really sounds like a system in crisis, right? But what if I told you that, statistically, India's railways have actually never been safer? It's a paradox, and we're going to unpack it.
Okay, so our story starts with these three incidents. They all happened on the very same day, but in two different states. Each one is a piece of a puzzle, and at first glance, that puzzle paints a pretty bleak picture.
All right, first up we're in Andhra Pradesh. A goods train goes off the rails in the Vizianagaram railway yard. Now, this isn't just some minor hiccup, you know? This thing creates a logistical nightmare. It sends these shockwaves that completely paralyze a super important travel corridor.
And the domino effect, it was immediate. We're talking 10 trains canceled over just 2 days, and that includes the high-profile Vande Bharat Express. It's just a stark reminder of how interconnected this whole network is. One derailment in one yard can literally bring an entire region's travel to a grinding halt. Now, on the very same day, hundreds of miles away in Bihar, the story shifts from disruption to outright tragedy. Near the Gerhani railway station, a 28-year-old schoolteacher, Khushbu Kumari, was just trying to cross the tracks to get a ride home. It's something people do every day. But in an instant, that routine act turned fatal.
18 kilometers. Just let that number sink in for a second. In a story about railways, what could a distance like that possibly mean? Well, the answer is just horrifying.
That 18 kilometers, that's the horrifying distance an unidentified 65-year-old man's body was dragged after he was struck by the Kumbh Express, also in Bihar. It's a grim, deeply unsettling detail that just highlights the brutal reality of what can happen on these tracks. So let's just recap this one day. A major derailment causing widespread chaos, and two tragic, separate fatalities. I mean, based on these headlines alone, you'd be forgiven for thinking India's railway system is in a state of absolute crisis.
But this is where our story takes a really sharp turn. Because these headlines, as tragic and as real as they are, they don't actually tell the whole story of safety on the Indian railways. There's a surprising twist coming.
So it really makes you ask a critical question, right? Are these terrible incidents the norm, or are they tragic exceptions to the rule? Well, to find that out, we have to zoom out from this one awful day and look at the trend over the last decade.
And here it is. Here's the paradox in plain numbers. A decade ago, Indian Railways recorded 135 train accidents in a single year. Fast forward to today, that number has plummeted to just 31. It's a massive, undeniable improvement in safety.
To put a single number on it, that's a 77% reduction in total accidents. I mean, that is a staggering success story when it comes to systemic safety. And it didn't happen by accident. It was achieved through a lot of deliberate effort and some serious tech upgrades. And a huge part of that success comes down to systems like Kavach. This is an automatic train protection system that was actually developed right in India. Think of it like a guardian angel for the train. It's a failsafe that automatically slams on the brakes to prevent a collision if the driver can't. It's technology designed specifically to stop the deadliest kinds of accidents.
So, how do we make sense of this? How can a single day feel so incredibly dangerous when the decade-long trend is so positive? Well, it's because we're not just talking about one problem here. We're actually looking at two very different kinds of safety failures. Here's the heart of the paradox. On the one hand, you have undeniable system-wide progress. These big national strategies and incredible technology like Kavach are working wonders, preventing major collisions and driving those overall accident numbers way down. But on the other hand, we have these persistent gaps at the ground level. The tragedies in Bihar, pedestrians getting struck on the tracks, that's not the kind of problem a system like Kavach can solve. They point to ongoing challenges with local infrastructure and, frankly, individual awareness. So, what does this all mean for the future? Well, if the big systemic problems are being tackled, the path forward has to be about closing these really dangerous gaps at the local, human level. And you know, the source material really frames the solution perfectly. It highlights a persistent need for enhanced ground-level vigilance, infrastructure enforcement, and public safety awareness. In other words, the next big leap forward in safety isn't just going to come from more tech.
So ultimately, the path forward seems pretty clear.
The next chapter on railway safety isn't just about building smarter trains. It's about more vigilance on the ground, better enforcement of rules at all those local crossings, and a huge boost in public safety awareness for everyone.
Which really leaves us with one final and I think really important question. We've seen technology like Kavach make incredible strides in preventing those catastrophic train-on-train collisions. But as technology keeps solving the big machine problems, is the final and maybe most difficult frontier for railway safety actually a human one? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.